Last time, Esso invited us out to the Aston Martin Red Bull Racing factory to find out from a fan's perspective how to survive Silverstone. Today, we are going to look at a team's perspective, going to Blake Hinsey, the sim engineer, to find out how do the team survive Silverstone. Let's go! And as if by magic, I'm walking through the door of the prohibited simulator room to find out why the sim is such an important tool for testing fuel loads.
Welcome.
I've seen this in videos, but not in real life. Blake, what is this?
This is the Formula One simulator. Since we're limited in testing and what we can do, this is the only opportunity they get to see new parts that are coming, changes to circuits, new circuits, so it's very important for the drivers.
Now, we've been on a few simulators over the course of our YouTube adventures so far, but how are they used? How does a simulator help you prepare for a high fuel consumption track such as Silverstone?
As Silverstone is a very high downforce track with lots of corners that are flat out, fuel consumption will be very high. So we look at low fuel balance, high fuel balance, and what we can do to help prepare the drivers for managing their fuel consumption during the race.
So are you analysing different performances under different fuel loads? How do you measure that all up?
So we'll look at the low fuel qualifying performance of the car, the balance, and make sure the drivers are happy with the car behaves much like you do on a race weekend. And then we'll move into high fuel running. So not only looking at car balance, behavior, tire behavior, but also any fuel management requirements for the circuit.
The drivers will typically do one preparation session per circuit, which can last from half a day to a full day of simulator work, depending on the amount of car upgrades, what's new, what the team needs to look at, whether it's a new circuit, and so on. With all of these variables to take into account, how do you develop a simulator to be as realistic as possible? Three of you lucky individuals watching will get to have a go. What would they find most difficult to adapt to in the simulator? Because it's not a game at home, it's not sitting on a chair.
Yeah, so probably in the simulator, first of all, it's a Formula One car, so it's extremely quick, and the amount of grip that you have is phenomenal going through the corners, and the amount of braking. Don't be afraid to brake late and trust the car.
Because the brake pedals are very stiff.
Yeah, and it requires a lot of force to decelerate the car.
But what does the big boss think of the F1 simulator? We couldn't come all the way to Milton Keynes and not ask what Christian thinks. Although I can't help but think that it's all a big excuse to play racing games during work hours.
Well, the simulator is a key tool for us because we're not allowed to test at the circuit in advance anymore, so we have to create a virtual world. So the drivers will practice their fuel saving, their honing their techniques, and we'll use it as an engineering tool to refine the setup and exactly things like fuel saving. Where to do it, when to do it, how much to do it. So that's it's a hugely important tool for us because these simulators have now evolved to such a high standard. I would say we're at 95% accuracy, so it's an incredible piece of equipment.
Now, last but by no means least, we have Bruce Crawley, who is pumped to be with us. Not even sorry. His role is ExxonMobil's Motorsport Technology Advisor, which means what, Bruce?
I help the Motorsport Technology team come up with new innovative performance improvements with the products that go into the race car.
So it's got me wondering, how does Bruce and the team work with Aston Martin Red Bull Racing on the run-up to a Grand Prix weekend? Don't tell me you set up a laboratory.
We set up a laboratory in the garage. We then go through analysis of the race fuel and the lubricants that go into the car, all the way up to the Thursday before the weekend, where there's a sort of critical phase where the engines are fired up for the first time. So we're taking lubricant and fuel from the car at that point.
Formula One are very strict when it comes to the amount of members in a pit garage. How many people are in charge of making sure the fuel is just right?
So at the track we have one full-time engineer in the garage. So we'll be taking samples from the car on a regular basis. This is typically happening at the end of each session. We may even take samples during a session, depending on what might be happening. If there was for example, a fault, we may then end up taking more samples than we would normally do to monitor the situation.
Silverstone presents some quite specific challenges for the fuels team, doesn't it, Bruce?
So yeah, Silverstone is a high fuel consumption track. That's really very important for us from a fuel point of view. So the Esso Synergy racing fuel is developed primarily to produce as much power from the engine as you possibly can. High fuel consumption circuits mean that you'll be spending a lot of time on wide open throttle. So on those types of circuit like Silverstone, then the fuel becomes, and the performance of the fuel becomes much more important.
So for all of you out there that casually have F1 cars in your garages, can you fill up with the Esso Synergy road car fuel and just drive away?
It would work perfectly well. And as we know, the latest set of regulations with Formula One is all about improving efficiency. And so it's those learnings from that program which we then take into our road fuel program. And we've got a lot of interchange actually between the people who are involved in the Formula One program and those people who are involved in developing Esso Synergy for road car use. So there's a lot of interchange actually going on, sharing ideas and information.
Bruce certainly is a knowledgeable fella, but let's get a final word from the big boss himself on how important Esso Synergy race fuel is to the team.
Our cooperation and relationship with Esso is so important for us to get every ounce out of the fuel, out of the consumption is so vital. And the work that Esso Synergy are doing with our engine partner is what's enabling us to get such good results on track.
Make sure you check out next week's video to see how the competition winners and myself fare in the Aston Martin Red Bull Racing Simulator. See you there.